What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Behind me, this beautiful orange behemoth here is my 1980 Autocar Constructor semi-tractor. Now, in a previous video, we decided that we were going to give this thing a few more ponies under the hood here. I picked up a used Cummins Big Cam 3, which is just the slightly newer, higher horsepower version of what's already in this truck. This is an 855 Cummins, and so is the Big Cam. There's a few reasons we can't just crank more horsepower out of this engine, and I talked about those in the previous video, so I won't bore you with it right now. But in today's video, we're going to be tearing down the replacement engine because, unfortunately, if you saw the last video, we found some carnage in that engine that I picked up. It's always a gamble when you're buying a used engine, and unfortunately, I lost that round. Looking to the positive side, though, we're going to tear that thing down and we're going to rebuild it so we know we're going to have a good, solid, fresh, rebuilt engine on our hands. Hopefully, we have a lot better chance at not being left on the side of the road stranded somewhere from a blown engine. The engine that's in this truck as it sets is a 230 horsepower Cummins 855. It is a small cam variety, though. It is a low mileage engine because this truck actually spent its life in a coal mine, a big strip mine. So it never really saw any mileage, but it probably does have quite a few hours on it. And that's probably part of the reason this truck is pretty gutless. I think the injectors are kind of fouled up, and a lot of that is probably from just sitting around and idling a lot of its life. Anyways, enough chit chat. Let's get into this thing. So by completely tearing the engine down, or at least almost completely tearing the engine down, we're going to be able to remove the crankshaft from the block, which is going to make it exponentially easier to polish up all the journals on the crank, and that will ensure that we have nice, smooth surfaces for new bearings to ride on. That'll make it easier to install all the new bearings, press out liners, and press in new ones. Alright, that was a lot of unbolting, but we finally got the top of the engine cleared off here, and I've got the heads loosened up. I just have this one bolt holding the head in place here. We're getting ready to lift it off. I want you guys to drop a comment down below and let me know if you think there's going to be more or less carnage visible from the top side of number one than there was from the back side. I am undecided myself, so I'm curious what your opinions are. Alright, we should be free to lift it off. Here's to hoping that I can lift this thing. Yeah, it's not that bad. The verdict? I don't know yet. What I can see does not look bad. Interesting, right off the bat here, I notice we've got some obstruction in that coolant passage right there. There's a big glob of silicone or something. And then over here, that sealing O-ring is all deformed and was not seated in there properly. I didn't do that, taking it apart. That was the way it was compressed like that. There's a look at our liner. You can see we've got some carbon ridge build up on the top there, but not bad. Maybe see some light scoring going on this top side, but we won't know until we rotate the engine and lower that piston all the way down to see what the story's really like in there. All right. Let's have a gander what's behind door number 2 here. Yeah, these ones look good down here. I don't see anything fishy looking. It all looks just swell. All right, nothing is holding that thing but the gasket right now, which is pretty impressive. You can call me a wimp. I'm going to use a floor jack to hold that weight while I pull the bolt out so I don't hurt myself. All right, there goes the third head. Ready? Ah. Oh, crap. We got an oil line still connected. Not an oil line, a fuel return line. Dang it. We got all the good smells going on now. We've got engine oil, we've got diesel fuel, we've got coolant. Oh yeah, that's how you know you're getting into something serious in the shop. You got all the senses working. There we go. Now we're free this time. Oh, lift with your back, right? All right. That was a bit of a job. Lots of stuff to come off before you can get those heads off, but we got her done. It took me about, I think, 2 hours. I've never actually torn one of these apart before, so kind of figuring it out as I went. Now we can rotate the engine some more and have a better look at the top side of this #1 liner, see what the damage is really like. Really doesn't seem to be too bad so far. I think it's just the bottom of the liner. All right, that leaves us with this cylinder all the way at the bottom, and yeah, just like I thought, really minor damage. I mean, you can feel there's a few lines in it. It's not that terrible. It's definitely, I mean, it's not good enough we could have run it. There's definitely some grooves in it. We would have had a lot of smoke and blow by on that cylinder, but yeah, it wasn't like a catastrophic failure. I'm still gonna pause to wait and see if that piston would be reusable, but probably not. Actually, you can see there's some small little indents in the top of the piston where it looks like some debris has come up and around and got smacked into the cylinder head, so we're gonna have to flip the cylinder head over to have a gander at that, but I bet it's fine. All right, so I've taken the caps off of these two connecting rods. We should be able to get a wooden dowel and just knock these out now. They're coming, but I didn't really think about it. There's a good carbon ridge here, so. We're getting there. We got one ring out. Oh yeah. They look good. They look good. All right, we got the last two coming out. Number 2 looks pretty good. And last but not least, number 5 looks about the same as the rest of them. we're just about disassembled as far as we're going to disassemble it. The last thing I need to do here is knock out these liners. Now there are fancy pullers you can use, or make up a puller plate and use an enter pack or some all thread or something like that and pop them out that way. But my buddy Sam assures me that you can just knock these things out with a 4x4, so that's what we're going to try. I don't know, Sam, that was a nice piece of oak. I don't think these things are moving. All right, we have attempt number 2 now. I cut a small special block that fits across both webs of the sleeve there. And now I'm going to take a better chunk and have a good whack at that. What I was doing before was just holding the block right on the edge of the sleeve, and that's just kind of acting like an axe face, you know. It's a very small, narrow band that you're actually contacting, so it was just splitting the block. But let's try this and see what happens. Hey, we got one! Still chipping up my block pretty good though. There we go. That's 4 out of 6. Well, that's 4 out of 6, guys. To get the other 2 remaining liners out, I gotta pick it up and reposition my blocks. Well, there's number 1. That was the reason we're here in the first place, is that guy right there. I actually broke my block of wood. Dang it. Well, at least I have some more. Well, we got us a new block to cut. Hope this one works out better. I'm trying to keep it tucked over that way so that it contacts as much of that liner as possible. I think we got her on the move. Oh yeah, she's going. There we go. Woo! Number 6. And with that, all the liners are knocked out. Thank goodness, too. Okay, so we're at the point in this rebuild where we have to start cleaning up after ourselves here. All the parts that we're going to be reusing, we need to get super clean so that we can inspect them very thoroughly and make sure that there's no contamination or metal deposits or anything left behind. So to make scrubbing parts a lot easier, I have one of these hot water automated, we'll call it, parts washers. So this old girl is, well, old. It's been around a long time. My dad used to have this thing in his shop, and it is in pretty rough shape these days. It does work. Hold your ears. It does work, kind of loud. And as you can see, not really a ton of room in here. I mean, there's my hand for size comparison. Kind of a small table when you're working with big engine pieces. You really can't fit a lot of big parts in there. So, that leads us over here to this big mysterious box that I just got. Ooh, it's like Christmas morning. Oh. So as you can tell, there is a slight increase in capacity in the new parts washer here, and I am super, super excited about that. Well, the old CUDA parts washer is going on to greener pastures. That somebody
Bottom feeders are us.
somebody else is going to take her into her second life here, and we got room to roll the new Temco unit right into place. Well, I'm excited to get this thing fired up. I got the proper plug-in that I needed wired in. Fired up. All right, so we got this bad boy about up to temperature, and we're ready to start throwing some parts at it. I'm going to throw these heads in first, and I want to pull the injectors out first because we're going to put in a new set of those anyways, and that will give the parts washer access to kind of flush down inside where the injectors set in there. Seems like a good opportunity to utilize the small parts basket that this thing came with too. This will keep all this little loose stuff from flying everywhere in the water jet streams. Now, if you can believe it, I actually have the proper injector puller to remove these injectors from the head, thanks to a very generous subscriber. It's even a snap-on. Getting fancy around here. So you clip that thing down over that. You tighten up the jaws around the injector. There you go. Pretty simple. Apparently I'm going to knock this rocker off with every single one. Still a bunch of fuel in that gallery. All right, let's load these bad boys into the parts washer. Oh yeah, feels like a sauna in there already. See, with the old parts washer, I don't think we'd have been able to get more than one of these in there at a time. Might be able to get all three of these in here right now. They're not light, I can tell you that. I know from using a parts washer similar to this at a previous job, you're always best to make sure it'll do a full rotation before you shut the door and have at it. Looks like we're clearing everything just fine. Now, because these parts aren't sticking up real high, we can flip down this lower wand, which will get more directed pressure right down on top of the parts. Let me close that valve, and that'll keep the pressure from going up here and running through the top valve too. So you're gonna get more pressure out of this than you would running the whole thing. All right, so I guess take a good hard look at these as they go in here, and then we'll have a good comparison shot whenever they're done. Okay, I set the timer for 15 minutes. Let's check back in and see what they look like. All right, the suspense is killing me. I couldn't wait anymore. It's been about 12 minutes. Ready to see what's behind door number one? Ooh! Get in here for the close-up, guys. Look at these things. Man, cue the before and after shot, huh? They look great. They turned out pretty darn good. I'm not going to complain about that at all. Of course, the places where we don't have any gap in here, we're going to have to rotate them all and give them another quick run just to hit the places that are kind of overlapped right now. We could have also negated that by only putting one in at a time or two in at a time and probably gotten them in one shot. But kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. No matter how you look at it, you're doing something twice. Give those another quick run to hit all the other sides that we missed, and then we'll be done. All right, so out of the parts washer here, I got the heads all laid out on the bench, and I'm going to start knocking the valves out of all of these. And I do not have an actual correct valve spring compressor, but what I do have
are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
is a socket with a hole in it, an eye bolt, and a pry bar. Just do one of these routines. Now with that window there in the socket, I should be able to just fish the magnet in here and pull these keepers out. Could use a little bit bigger window in my socket there, but you get the gist of it. There's one, there's two. Now we can let that up nice and easy. There we go. That valve will drop right out now. Alright, we've got the heads completely stripped down here, ready to go back in the parts washer and get their final cleaning so that we can go through and inspect them. After they come back out of the parts washer, we're going to give them a good, solid, thorough inspection. We're going to check all the injector bores here. We're going to check all the valve seats, everything that we can see, and make sure there's no damage or going on. One thing I did notice here, and it's only on this specific head, these two heads, there's none of this funny business going on. You have a little backing shim here for your valve spring, but 3 of these valve guides have a shim. Now I understand it slightly because these 3 specifically have a slight counter bore going on here, and it's definitely a machined groove. It's not wear or anything. So they have this extra little, I don't know, 30 thousandths shim, something like that. I kind of get it on those 3, but this guy over here does not have the counter bore and it has a shim. I don't understand that. This guy up here only has a shim and does not have the, you know, dimpled backing plate, and this one here is also missing that dimpled backing plate, but it is counterbored. The shim, you know, just feeling it with my finger, seems to be the same depth as the counterbore. It gets you up to the deck height. Like I said, it makes sense on these 3. The only reason I could see for that counterbore is that they maybe pushed in new valve guides in those 3. So if you guys understand why this thing is counterbored, let me know down in the comments. Let me know if I'm right on my assumption that they were replaced valve guides. The thing I really need to know is why these shims are here on these other valve guides that are not recessed. Like, do you think somebody just didn't pay attention and put those in wrong? Because it would make sense to me that shims should only be on the ones with the counterbore. So that's my long-winded way of asking you guys the question of tell me what you think should happen there, because I don't think that's right the way it was. Well, I started to pull those cam follower covers off of there and quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to get the third one off, and I would have a tougher time with the second one if I didn't pull off our oil pump, and I think this is a power steering pump for the previous truck. I don't think we're going to be using that. And then of course you have your compressor and your fuel injection pump. Keep in mind that we are presently upside down. So I think there's 5 bolts and I should be able to pull off this whole oil pump assembly, and pretty much the same thing for the compressor slash fuel pump assembly, injection pump, not fuel pump. We are like this close to having that engine completely tore down. Just need more extensions. Yeah, feels like something's still holding us. There we go. Just good and sealed on there. Ta-da! Oh man, there's an oil line I missed. Oh goodness, this thing's heavy. There we go. Now, finally, we can take our cam covers off. I walked over to the toolbox 10 times for 10 different tools, and you think I grabbed a smaller hammer in any of those strips? No. Ah, there we go. Holy crap, that thing was really holding on there. You'd pry it off of one side, and then it would pop back onto the other, and you had to bring it straight off, and I just couldn't get a grip on it to do that. I don't think it matters which cover goes to which section, but I am going to number them, just for peace of mind. Well, with that stuff off of there, all we have left to do really is pull out the camshaft, and I'm going to pull off the water pump assembly over here and the oil cooler. I had a bunch of people email me and message me telling me that the oil cooler would be contaminated with metal as well, which does stand to reason. So probably going to have to replace that, unfortunately. But like so many of you have commented on the previous video, at least after the end of all this, we're going to know what we got. We're going to have a well done rebuilt engine, and if it's not well done, well, the blame lands squarely on me. All right, a camshaft should just slide right out now. Here it is. Yeah, boys, she's just a little bit bigger than the one in your 350 Chev. Just a little bit more to go here, and we are going to be able to take the block outside, steam clean it all down, and get it ready for reassembly. Alright, so these guys right here I just took the bolts out of are piston coolers. There you go, right there. And all this thing is basically a through port for that oil passage, and pressurized oil sprays out of that nozzle to the underside of the piston, and that oil keeps the pistons cooler and also goes through the holes on the underside of the piston and lubricates the cylinder walls as she's running. There's nothing wrong with these. I'm just pulling them out so that we don't break them in the process of cleaning and reassembling. These things will probably go in pretty close to the last step. Shouldn't be anything wrong with these things. I managed not to break them while we were driving out the sleeves and everything. Thought about leaving them in there, but really in the interest of flushing out all the oil ports as best as we can, we should pull them all. All right, I think that's it. Just this one last bolt up here to the neck. Yep, there we go. And released the remaining little bit of oil that was still lingering in the block here. We need more pig mats. These things are absolutely awesome for doing stuff like this. So much better than having mounds of kitty litter mixed in with all your hardware and everything. All right, we'll let that sit there and drain out for a little bit. It's gonna be great. There we go. That's it, that's the last of it. So there are little plugs all over the place on the block, like right here and here and here, and you know, the more you look, the more you find. And those are all access points for the oil galleries and the water jackets. So what I'm going to do before we get into the cleaning mode of things, I'm going to pull out all those plugs and we're going to blow everything out with compressed air really good. I'm going to hit it with the steam Jenny, and we're going to blow out all those ports with the steam Jenny really good. We're going to make sure we get as much crud and oil and old coolant and debris and everything that we can out of this block. I'm trying to get this thing pretty much like an operating room before we start reassembling here. I know some of you guys are cringing right now, and I'm not a big fan either. This is a giant mess, but disassembly always is. There's no way you can really do it super clean. I mean, you could probably do it better than this, but you know, who am I to judge? The point is, reassembly is when you really need to make sure your stuff is clean, and we are going to do just that. All right, so I just popped the ends of the oil cooler off, and look at all the debris that the oil cooler has caught. A bunch of chunks of silicone, and I don't even know what all that stuff is there, but basically this is kind of built like a boiler. It's just a heat exchanger. So these are tubes that go through there, and the side that we're looking at is the coolant side. So all this debris came from the coolant side, and then the oil circulates around in between all these tubes inside of here, of course, and that exchanges the heat from the oil into the coolant. But definitely wasn't running at peak efficiency with all those ports clogged. All right, I got this disaster zone all cleaned up. I got our parts nicely organized on a pallet here. The very last thing that we need to do before we can officially call the tear down of this engine complete, I need to separate the injection pump, which is this doodad section here, from the compressor, which is this doodad section here. Looks like there's just four bolts bigger than the wrench I have. Those are 5/8 head. Anyway, we need to separate that so we can send it over to our friends at Area Diesel Service and have them go through this thing and make sure there's nothing wrong in that pump that is going to potentially harm our rebuilt engine. That's better. That's simple. Then we can box up the PT pump here, ship her off to Area Diesel. Sweet. Okay guys, with the teardown complete, I've got the area cleaned up here so I can actually breathe again. It was making me itchy just looking at this disaster zone over here. We got that thing cleaned up. We got all the parts organized, put away, and I've been running loads of parts through the parts washer. There's a few things that I'm not wanting to put through there because I'm afraid it could damage them. But most things have been washed at this point. The last big item that we have to do, of course, is the block. And unfortunately, this thing's about 3 inches too big. It will not fit in that new parts washer. So we're gonna have to go at that thing the old-fashioned way. We'll have to drag it outside, fire up the steam jenny, and melt all that stuff out of there that way. It's really not too bad. I mean, it sat in the shop here long enough on all these mats and everything that all the oil was dripped out of it. There's just a little teeny bit of debris and basically some oil residue that I want to get off of there and make sure that we get all those ports flushed out. I believe I mentioned earlier, get any residual metal from that bearing failure out of its system. So in the next video, we're going to cover all that, and then we're going to get into the reassembly. So if you guys would do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button down below the video. It really helps out the channel. It doesn't cost you guys a dime. If you'd like to help support the channel in a little more direct way, head on over to dieselcreek.com. Link is always down in the description there. We've got hats, t-shirts, koozies, all that stuff and more over at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is always down in the description. For me and the big cam here, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.